the computer. Thank you, Sister Siri. How can we get to a place where we can begin to love the people in our lives, and that love becomes more valuable, that love becomes greater than the disagreements that we have and the things that we just can't get with. Now, again, relationships really require a whole different level of maturity, because some people jump too far. Well, I don't want to be best friends, and I don't know. There are levels to relationships, right? It doesn't mean that everyone in your life is in this inner circle. However, we have to truly learn that when we love people unconditionally, that they have access to us. It may not be the same access that we give other people, but we have to learn how to stop shutting that access off. Now, of course, there's a big asterisk, and I always say this. Obviously, if you come into an account with someone that's violent or abusive, that is a different situation, that God will lead you out in a way, and you can pray for that person, but you get out, okay? I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the people we were talking about last time, the people at our jobs, the people that we've known for years, and sometimes, many times, they're not always the closest ones to us. It's the ones that we know, and they know us, and and they could just say something or do something, and it just starts to twist our view of sometimes ourselves, sometimes them. And so what do we start to do? We start to distance ourselves. And what's worse sometimes is some relationships have made us question who we are, and have allowed us to become insecure in the ministry God has given us. And so we start to distance ourselves, right? But God is saying, when we can really operate in a place of love, and this is hard, when people say and do things, it's like you hear it and receive it on a whole different level. Minister Aaron Jenkins, when I was younger and he was a youth, he was always speaking to the youth. One of the things that he said that has stuck with me to this day is, we have to stop taking things so personal. And I was just like, I took that personal, because I'm just like, how? That is hard. Somebody come and tell me about myself, or somebody does something or betrays me, or I gave them chance after chance. You know what I'm saying? And don't take it personal. And when he continued to break it down, it's not that we don't feel the hurt. No, you're going to feel the hurt. It's not that you don't feel the direct, betrayal or whatever that is. But it's like, if we begin to look at them through God's lens, you'll see that there was so much more to what they did and why they did it. And it wasn't all about you. Some people are walking around, and we talked about this, in these Christian streets. There are different blocks. Some people live here, some people live there. There are levels to this thing called Christianity. And if you take something from someone who you may understand, or God may allow you to see that they're on a different level, that does not mean that you're greater. That doesn't mean that they're less. It's just simple. If I'm in 3rd grade and you're in 5th grade, we're both amazing people. We're just in different grades. And if I allow a 3rd grader to say something to me, and I've got my master's, and now Persia here says some things to me, and I'm just like, really? And I have to learn not to take it personal. Why? Because she's a child. And there are still many children, babies, that it says in the word, within the Christian community. They're still drinking milk while you're eating steak. How can we really understand? Now, they may be your age. They may have been on a journey with you. They may be, within your community. They may be hearing the same word as you on Sunday. But that don't mean a thing. If they're in 3rd grade, they're in 3rd grade, and it's up to them to continue to grow. So, I'm getting away from myself, but I just thought, wow, in order to not take things personal, we have to really consider the context of the bigger picture, beginning with looking at someone the way God does. Can I just look at you and love you? And just love you as a person. And as I hear what you're saying, and sometimes people can say things and they're right. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. But you still have to be careful, right? You take what they say, take the meat, spit out the bones. Because some people love to tell you about yourself. Some people love to mess up the second chance and the third chance and the fourth chance, right? So you have to learn how to balance those relationships, balance that access without just completely shutting them out, not allowing the opportunity for your light to shine in their life. Whatever it is, you have no idea what God has for them from you, and you have no idea what God may have for you from them. Just because they're in third grade and they may have shown that very clearly, that relationship may still serve a purpose for you in the future. Who knows? Maybe just in the lesson learned. And many times it's just the opportunity to exercise real unconditional love. Unconditional. There is no condition. There is nothing you could do or say where I will not love you. That's how Jesus looks at us. You can't go too far, too deep. There is no mountain too wide where my love cannot find you. And that always just makes me like kind of well up when I think about when he says you can make your bed in the depths and I will be there. And some of us have been in the depths, in the dark, but he goes after us. We're never alone. We are never in a place where we are not loved. And what he's asking us to do with that love is give it back unconditionally. Forgive, let go, go sit back down at the table. So I love how she talked about what happens too when we get up at the table after her and her husband came to terms and were able to sit at that table. She kind of transitioned into some of us feel like there are no tables for us anymore. You know, you sometimes feel that feeling where you're walking in your own lane and you feel like you are just constantly misunderstood. Maybe it's your personality, maybe it's the way you do things, maybe you're a bit of an introvert or you pull back, maybe you're too much of an extrovert and people are just always commenting and saying something. I definitely went through that season. I went through a very interesting season with some, my own family, my brother, just back and forth, and he just kind of, I don't want to put him on blast, but we just had an interesting back and forth about who I am. And it just made me question. I'm like, yeah, I know, but like, that's who I am, but then I had to question, okay, what can I do to make things better, right? But at the same time, I also learned that when you start feeling misunderstood and feeling like who you are is constantly be picked at and picked apart, you don't sit at no tables. A lot of us are just skirting by these tables. Hi, good to see you. Oh no, I'll eat my food standing right here. Instead of getting back in that hot seat, right? That's a hot seat where people are just looking at you. They get to say stuff. See, that's the thing when you get in relationships. People feel like they can say stuff. I mean, so do we. That you learn about other people's perspectives of you. And many times you share your perspectives of people without even realizing it. Sometimes if you have a friend, you could even think about some of your last conversations. You look at your text message with your last girlfriend or whoever, and just you might find somewhere in there where you might have said, girl, you are always so, girl, you always, or they might have projected on you. Like, child, you never call, girl, that's just who you are. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we have to be able to have those conversations, and it's not always easy. So we get up from the table because we're over it. It's too much. And it really comes back down to us. How confident are you in who God has called you to be so that you can sit in these seats and you can have the conversation? Y'all are cracking me up in the chat. Let me tell you, Angie, exactly, right? Some of y'all are skating through them tables, right? Looking for the room where nobody is there because you're over it. You're over it. And I cannot begin to tell you, but let me tell you where this goes, because it hit me as she continued to have this. So many of us are living in the tension of being misunderstood. Without warning, you may have lost a treasured friendship that fractured simply over a difference of opinion. Has anybody ever been there? Can you simply think of a time where there was a difference of opinion, may not even have been that deep, or maybe it was, but when you can put, if you can go like this, right? And push that disagreement aside and look at the person and see that it was a treasured friendship. Now, I am also a big believer in how Pastor teaches us that some relationships are for seasons and some relationships are for lifetimes. Absolutely. But does that mean to stop loving someone? That if they needed to knock on your door, they needed a prayer, or their name was brought to your spirit, that we just completely, oh, no, that was a season one, God. Next, who you got? Okay, I'll pray for her. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're just like, I don't, so, and that's how we know sometimes we haven't let things go, because that name may come up to, I don't even want to think of it. I don't even want to think about it, because you don't want to sit at that table, because it's not just of what they did, but there could be some truth of some things that God wants to deal with about what you did and how he wants to grow you and take you to another place, right? And so there's so many things when I think about that we have to really be mindful of people, no matter how long they're in your life. If someone has crossed your path, there's a chance, especially if they're in the same community or if it's a family member, you're going to see them again. Most likely you're going to cross a path. Maybe God will drop them in your spirit, but you've got to really be figuring out, okay, God, what does this mean? It doesn't mean you have to develop the same type of relationship that you had before and you got to know. And maybe they're that type of person. Oh, you hit me up. Okay, listen. No, I was just saying that I love you and I was thinking of you. And I just want you to know that you're loved. You don't know how far that can go. But some of us are so stuck because we don't even want to look at that table. We are so upset with the difference of opinion that we had, that we fractured that treasured relationship. And some of those fractures, they get deeper, they get wider, and it's hard to return, especially if we kind of feel like we kind of overreacted. That's kind of the harder part. You know, we might have overreacted, or we might have been like misunderstood. We were misunderstood in how we presented it, and we look back, and as we grow, and God will resurface that situation, and you're just like, why do you keep bringing this to my mind? 1 year later, 5 years later, God is saying, because I just want you to resolve that and be open to sitting at the table. It may not be with the same person, but the same situation may happen again. And I want you to respond differently. And this time, I want you to show unconditional love. I want you to have the difficult conversation and walk away still loving them and still allowing that access. And again, access comes in levels. So I want to be clear. Right? So you may replace some access, but you don't want to turn your back on the people. You don't want to pull your light away from the people. And I can tell you, I am guilty as charged. One too many times. I shouldn't even be talking about this. Okay. But I receive it. And God wants to do something in all of us. Sometimes we feel like, even if we wanted to move forward, you feel like the path forward is hidden. And I love how she says that. So we don't look for the path forward. You know, there's a lot of insecurities that come up. And as women too, the way we love and we love hard, we're just like, man, ain't nobody trying to be vulnerable. I ain't trying to no, I ain't going there, girl. I got too much to do. Sometimes you're like, I already got so much that has happened since then. I don't have time. But God is saying you have no idea that it's going through the people where you find healing, not around them, not away from them. Because in that isolation, that is where the enemy gets to continue to do things and pour his play. It is through the thick of it where you will find strength, perseverance, and you will come out a new and better person. And you will be so proud of the woman you decided to be, to make that decision to find that pathway forward, right? So, I love that she says, ignoring our differences doesn't actually make anything safer. It just makes us more insulated and more divided. So the more we ignore that stuff, it does not breed anything good in our lives. We talk about the different people. I can't stand that she named the people. She says, some of y'all, we have unfriended spouses, we have unfriended best friends, sister-in-laws, some of our own children. And she put, these are your people. I said, don't go calling out people now. All right. Shoot. All right. And I love how she said, these are your people. God knew that you would get married, or you would meet this person, or you would meet this friend, or you would meet this coworker, or you would have this child, and the friction that would come from that. But he said he knew, ooh, I'm gonna give her these people. Because through the friction and through the difficulty, she is gonna grow to the woman that I've called her to be, but she's gotta go through it. She cannot run away from it. So it's so much. Now, let me tell you, this is where I was done, okay? She talks about the Bible, okay? The Bible is not a story where disagreement has the final say. Let me explain something to y'all. We're gonna talk about the Passover meal. How relevant. All right, let me tell y'all who is not invited to my Passover meal. His name starts with a J. Okay, and I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Judas, the betrayer. I knew I was walking down the street with my friends. I saw Judas. I saw him say something. He didn't even know I heard him. That's all I needed to know. I'll take him off my guest list, but no, here comes Jesus, inviting him to the table. Come take a seat at one of the most important meals I'll ever have. Child, you know what I'm talking about. Anybody ever have a sweet 16 or a wedding? You got those people in your court. Those people are the ones that held you down. Judas, goodbye. We have gone through this. I've given you a chance. Get out the wedding. Okay? So, obviously I have a lot, I've got a lot of growing to do. But I really appreciated going back to this scene, because we all knew it, but I love this. Jesus knew a betrayer was amongst him, and Jesus's invitation for Judas to sit at the table is an astounding expression of friendship and love. He could have really put him out there and made him feel some type of way. Some of us have been there. Maybe you feel like you haven't been, supported by someone, and then it's your thing, and it's your opportunity to have somebody be a part of your event or special milestone. And this person just hasn't been who they could be to you or should have been. And yet still, you either invite them or don't. Oh, could we just take a moment? Because they're still not on my guest list. You got to grow through this one. All right. Well, I'm like, okay, I see what you did here, Jesus. I see what you did here, but you got to give me a moment. You got to give me a moment. So Jesus answered, it is the one to whom, he said, he literally lets the room know that there is a betrayer amongst us. And I love how he says, it is the one to whom I will give this piece of bread. And when I've dipped it in the dish and then dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas. I want to know what happened after that. It kind of, the Bible, I love the word, because God allows his Holy Spirit of an imagination to allow, because I'm just like, I would have been like, so we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about Judas right here. Just the reactions, the emotions. Or maybe you have somebody in your life and you're just like, why do you keep letting this person come? Why? But this person is receiving so much light, and you don't even realize how much they need it. Some people put that mask in the front and whatever the reason, they don't have you at their stuff. Well, keep inviting them. If there's anything that I can tell you today, keep inviting them. And if you haven't, start. It may feel real awkward, but start. Okay, if that's what God is saying to do. And this is what we learned here. This action of dipping bread and giving it to a person at a table was a common cultural practice. But don't miss this. It is a way to single out the honored guest, child, at the table. Similar to someone standing up to give a toast at a wedding reception, it was a mark of esteem. Jesus, in turn, was telling his betrayer, I love you, I honor you, and I raise a toast to you. You know, I was just like, I gotta stop here. Because not only did I invite you out and pay for your plate, okay, now I'm gonna toast to you and let you know in front of all my close family and friends that I love you, I honor you, and you are esteemed. And I raise a toast to you. And so we think about that. Would you raise a toast to a person who you personally find offensive and constantly disagreeable? Maybe a family member, a co-worker? Oh my goodness. See, like I said, Jesus was fully human, but he was also fully God. And Jesus says it plainly in Matthew 24. And if anybody wants to go back to that, that section of Judas, that's in John 13. John 13, verses 25 through 26, just about Judas. Now, Matthew 5:44 says, love your enemies. And she says, I don't think this love is an I'll love you at a distance kind of love, because I love saying that. Let me tell you what we love to say as Christians. I love you at a distance. See you later. This love your enemies is an up close and personal, welcome to my table kind of love. The love that he uses in that verse in Matthew 5:44 is an unconditional agape love, which is the highest form of love. Wow. And we have to begin to ask ourselves, what does it look like to really love our enemies? And she goes to this. Ultimately, as it says in Colossians 3:12-14, bear with one another and forgive each other if any of you has a grievance against someone. And that term, bear with one another, means to endure, have patience, and in turn, what comes up in the dictionary, to suffer. So when we think about the people in our lives, when we say enemies, okay, let's break that down for a second. You know, you say, that's my frenemy. They say, keep your enemies closer. You know, we have to be careful how we use that word. You know, not all of us are sitting inside and we got somebody in the bushes across the street just waiting to take us out. Now, if that is you, I do pray for your safety now. But when we think about enemy, we think about someone betrayed, someone that, good night, mama. Sorry. When we think about an enemy, we think about, that big thing, but a lot of times it's someone who betrayed us. It is someone who, we feel could possibly be used by the enemy sometimes because of their level of immaturity. It is true. Just because you're a Christian does not mean that the enemy cannot come in sometimes and use you to tear somebody else down. I'll leave that right there. So we say, but a lot of us don't go around and say, that's my enemy, that's my enemy. It's just that we kind of feel that, we kind of react like that because we protect ourselves from them. We shut out, we put up a guard, and we keep them and love them at a distance. So it's somewhat a very conditional love. Now, this is a very touchy subject because, again, I want to make sure I keep reiterating the fact that, and I'm still diving into this with you guys, so I can't wait to open up the floor because I want to hear from my sisters, my younger sisters, my older sisters, because there's so many levels to this thing called relationships. So it's not just this general go on and love and connect and, invite them over for tea. No, not necessarily. See, God is working in each of our individual lives. That's how amazing and sovereign he is. And all the situations are different, so different. But all that's the same is that the love. Love is a choice. Love is an action. And as we look at Jesus and his life, love many times puts you in second place. It has you take a seat to people that you want to stand up and say, no, not here. Jesus took a seat and he sat at the table with people that he shouldn't have even opened the door to. That's the type of love we're talking about here. Child, Judas would have been texting me and I would have been like, block. You done missed that dinner. It's a lot, you know? So I love when we break down that whole thing, bear with one another. We need more patience. And what it comes down to, because when you think about the snip, 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 that's because we don't have, how many times as a woman have we said, and I don't care, romantic, forget it. I don't have the time, the day, the patience. All right, but the good thing about romance is we're not out here trying to have a bunch of romantic partners now, at least not in these Christian streets. You know, we are looking for that one, right? That God is leading us to. So we get to not have tolerance. That's two different things for certain things that, you know, standards that God is, you know, having us look for. But when you do, if you got a boyfriend, boo, bae, a husband, you know, there is a level of patience that you have to keep digging deeper, especially if God keeps saying, keep going, stay, work it out. It's a patience that you never probably have felt, and it keeps coming. Marriage continues to peel off the layers and allows you to see yourself, you know, who you really are. That's what I said when I got married. I said, now I thought I know who I was. And so the first years of marriage, we're going into year 13. And the first year of marriage, I was just like, oh, Cerise, get it together. I didn't like what I saw. It's not just my space. And so many other things, so much selfishness. I mean, marriage is a selfless act, but truth be told, being in a relationship with anyone is a selfless decision. And the moment we get selfish, the moment we lose patience, the moment we decide to stop bearing because we feel we can't take it anymore versus going to God and saying, God, how do you want me to handle this person? I'm so frustrated. I'm upset. I am so hurt. I can't take it anymore. Let me know my next move. See, we don't often do that. We react to the emotions and the feelings because we are so done and we are ready to now throw the gates up, protect our hearts, and protect ourselves. Forget the armor of God. We got our own woman armor over here that says, not the one, I'm the right one today. And God is like, hold on now, where you get that outfit? I have the armor for you to put on faith, okay, and salvation and peace so that you can respond to this differently. When we put on our own armor, forget it. We will find ourselves eventually at a table of 3, and then a table of 2, and then a table of 1. That's the part that got me in this chapter. I was fighting through the whole thing like, no, I'm not inviting him, block. I don't know what you're saying. God, table of 1. And it was just the way that it stuck out. We were not created to sit here alone, ladies. If you are here looking on the other side of this camera and you've been feeling something and you just kind of don't have an outlet, one of the things God said is you need people. You got to reach out. You are not meant to carry this alone. You don't got somebody you may not be, and say, I get it. You may not be a phone person. You may not be that, you know, I want to go sit and talk. Get through that hump because it'll bless you more than you realize. You may not be that person. I don't really like to go out and, you know, sit and have lunch. Some people do. Some people are better at it. Me, I shy away because I sometimes overthink too much. And I sit and unless I'm so comfortable, but, you know, I've learned that God is like, you need people. You got to build your community back up. And that community does not look like everyone that looks like you and thinks like you and walks like you and talks like you. But I will tell you this, within that community, you'll have closer people, you have this people, but they will all serve a purpose and you will grow because you don't grow in isolation. You get access to the enemy to come in and no one else to tell you, you know, stand up, sis, you good. I just wanted to check in on you. Let's go. Let's connect face to face. You know, the pandemic was an interesting time because it also pushed us further back away from each other. Digitally, everything's digital. Even when phones came in, I say that all the time. Just how much we're on our phones, how easy it is to text someone and versus calling. You know, sometimes somebody will call, and you're like, man, you could have texted me that. My father, oh my gosh. Hey, Dad. Hey, Cerise, I'm just checking in. Yeah, I'm about to da-da-da-da-da. Call. He can't take it. If I put more than 5 words in a text, the phone rings. He's like, I don't know it all. I'm like, Daddy, are you kidding me? You could have just read it and responded. But then I get off the phone and I say, thank you, God, for the opportunity. We wound up getting into this conversation that I technically really didn't want to get on the phone. He knows that too. But by the end of it, guess what? And my father is not a believer, but guess who was refreshed by the end of that phone call? Me. My father will talk about everything. He will talk about the universe. And he's wise. He's got a lot of knowledge and but he's always searching. So I pray for my father and his salvation, you know, and I constantly do, but he's always, but then we just talk because he knows me and I know him. And we get through those conversations, some of them where I remember before I couldn't do it. It disturbed me. I wasn't able to sit at the table with him. When I finally decided to sit there, I always walk away refreshed. And me and my father are very different and very alike. So it's a very interesting thing. So you got to think about the people in your life, unbelievers or not, whether they look like you or not, whether they talk like you or not, whether they disagree, believe in this, politics or not, just know that there's something bigger than all of that, and that is God. And God is love. This is one and the same. So when we operate in that unconditional love with someone, we are actually presenting God to whomever is on the other side of that table. But when we get up, we miss the opportunity to be who God has called us to be. When we sit at that table, guess what? It's uncomfortable. Some things are said that you gotta hold your tongue. What did we talk about last time? Be slow to speak. Lord, help me with that, because I got a response for everything. You know, my love for communication and speaking is a blessing. I won't say it's a curse, but it's a work in progress. Because when I get into it with someone, like my husband, it's just tit for tat. And it takes so much energy. And God's like, now what? I'm like, I don't know, but I got my last word in. Oh my gosh, no. But then I feel depleted. I feel now, then after I feel good about my word and my response, I look at the relationship. I look at the person. It could be my husband. How did I make him feel? If I love you, then that didn't make me feel too good at the end of the day. Where did we get? Because I got to speak my piece. Let me tell you something. Not all things need to be said. That person that irks you because you get into conversation and they say things and they're waiting for your response, stop responding, because it keeps going left. That's good. Yeah, no. Me and my father. We get the topic of Christianity. He's like, so this Jesus guy. And I used to start bubbling inside. But I just be like, yeah, you know, because I used to say, God, sometimes he surpasses me with the knowledge of what he says. And I don't know how to, he's like, so how would, you know, in Jewish and the sand and the soil. I'm like, what? All I know is that Jesus is Lord. I'm still studying, you know, but I've learned to just stop and allow God to speak. Certain things I'll say, yeah, but you know, he's a forgiving God. Anyways, what we eating for dinner tonight though? You know, I don't gotta respond to everything. This is how we preserve relationships, by being slow to speak. And this is the biggest one, slow to anger and quick to listen. If you don't know what God is asking you to do, but you know God is speaking to your heart right now about sitting back at the table, just understand you don't have to say much. Just be who you are. Your light is enough. I see it here. Your light is enough. Be slow to speak, slow to anger. When they say that little thing that presses that button that you be like, you see why I don't sit at the table with you? You see it? Sometimes I got to cough because I want to say something so bad. I'll be like, yeah. Oh, Jesus did what? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what you believe. Whatever you got to do to get through it, because the words be bubbling on my lips. I got to cough and, package them up for the right time, because I believe that God continues to plant seeds in people. And one day, you never know, that person may come back to you with a whole different conversation. Maybe something happens, whatever that is. But it was just crazy when she said, ultimately, God is calling us loud and clear as believers to be of one heart and one mind. He says, I pray that all of them may be one. Twice in John 17, he talks about the desire for unity in the kingdom. And as Christians, it's our job to be the peacemakers, keep the unity, and end the division. Even in some of the things, if you're a social media guru, watch what you say, because it might stir up dissension. Some people love to be controversial. Why? It's cool, but always just look at the fruit. Some people are really good because they're able to be controversial and bring it back to a place of unity and love. Some people just like, yeah, watch this. Watch this. Watch, I'm going to say this. Watch this. You know exactly who's coming to your post. If you're not a social media person, when you're at the job, when you're at the supermarket, wherever you are, at the dinner table with your family, your friend, your boyfriend, your boo, watch what you say. We have to quicken, we have to be more, have more self-discipline with the words that come out of our mouths, and be the people that were of unification, like the early church. Eventually, the early church got there. They were of unity, and was it Paul that constantly was so excited about the fact that the early church was there. And now it's our time. And she says, here's what we risk if we don't find a way forward. We will each end up sitting at a table of one. And that's when I was like, you know what? We have to learn to love us. Back to the beginning. We have to learn to love us more than we hate what is different. That's where it begins. Can you love that person more than what's different about you two? If our divisions create an all or nothing mentality, then we are missing out. You can't, if we are just like, either you're all in or all out. That's right. You might feel like some people are constantly stepping in and out the door of your life. Let them step. You stabilize yourself. God will bring you. Let me tell you something. There might be some fickle people and you just want to cut them off because you're so sick and tired of it. But God will bring you the godly friend or friends that you need that are stable. So you don't have to worry about the ones that are in and out. Let them do what they do. Just don't close the door. Love them where they're at. Oh, you leaving? Okay. And I know that's hard, but the more you exercise how to do it in love, and it doesn't ever mean that you can't confront someone about something if God is lit. And that's the thing. You got to know what somebody say. You got to know how to talk to who you're talking to. You got to be able to package it in the way that they receive it. You got to know who you're talking to, and you got to know if God is saying, don't say it, not yet. Or God is saying, hey, I think you should, you can feel it. So, I think you should say something. Hey, I just want to talk to you. Sometimes I feel like da-da-da-da-da. Let's see where it goes. If they're completely over it, step back. Okay, sis, I love you. I just wanted to, I know someone like that, and I just be like, girl, you good? She just be so nice and sweet. In conflict, and I learned from that. I'm like, wow. But it's because I learned over the time she's stable within herself and her relationship with God and the people that God has brought in her close table. So she can go sit at other tables that are uncomfortable. She can talk to people that kind of irk her, but you would never see it. And it's just crazy. And it doesn't mean that you get into this toxic. I'm just like, if we live in this world, toxicity is everywhere. There's been some toxic things that we have done. We may not be toxic people, but there's things, you have to get to a place where you allow God to just show you how to level those people, but still love them unconditionally. So as we close, I love, like the old song says, she says, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with you. Let it begin with me. Let us be the peacemakers. Okay. Let me make sure I say anything I want to say here. Yes. Whew. You see what I'm saying? I got through the end of this book and I was just like, man. And I'm not going to lie, at the end of these messages, I'm just like, okay, God, I can hear. It's like you can hear him saying, go. Who is saying, send me, I'll go. You can hear him asking, will you go? He gives the message and now he's asking, so will you go? See, now when we look at it like that, see, sometimes we'd be like, yes, Lord, send me. He's like, you sure? It's like the disciples was like, I want to come. I want to sit at the right hand with you. He's like, oh, trust me. Okay. It's hard. But even though it's hard, even though it's difficult, even though it may hurt, be uncomfortable and awkward, the reward is so much greater. God will take care of you as you take care of his own. As you take care of his sheep, he will take care of you. He will open those doors. He will give you the desires of your heart as you seek him and you seek to have that unconditional love. We just have to begin to pray and get on our knees. And back to that Sunday service, what are you willing to let go of so that you can be the best, brightest light that he's already called you? He's already placed it in there. You know, so I'm super excited about this. And I love how the chapter ends with 3 questions to ask yourself. And I'll add this in the recap email. 1, how has the call to bear with each other felt like suffering for you? And I want you guys to think about this because next time we share, we're going to open the floor. And for those that are led to share, I want us to talk about these questions. Number 2, is it possible for a human being to love an enemy with unconditional agape love? If so, how? Love to hear testimonies. Number 3, who could I invite to the table? Now, don't y'all be giving no names and stuff, but who could I invite to the table, giving him or her an opportunity to talk while my main job is to what? Listen. God is speaking to you. Who is he asking you to get back to the table so that you can be the peacemakers of this world and the light of this world? And those are 3 questions to ask yourself. 3 questions to ask God. 1, Lord, how have I refused to love and value people in my life when we disagree? Sometimes when we disagree with people, we do and we say things that show that we don't value them the way we should. We've hurt people in our responses and saying, no, shut them out. Number 2, God, where in my life am I at risk of becoming a table of one? Am I there now? Well, Lord, help me, change me, and show me a table I can go sit at. Number 3, Jesus, show me how to love like you, even those who betrayed me. Help me to love your call to unity more than I hate what divides me from my neighbor. I got a lot of work to do. I'll just say that for myself. It's not an overnight thing, y'all. Don't be sitting at all these tables tonight and you ain't ready yet. Okay, it's not an overnight thing. Give them time. Change is the process. Give it time to first go to the Father. Ask him those questions. Go deeper and get back to the tables. We're going, don't worry, we here. You're going to sit at the uncomfortable tables. Come back, sit at the WCW table so we're going to talk about it and lift each other up. You're like, child, I was uncomfortable, but God, right? I didn't want to say that. I wanted to say this so bad, but God, he held me. He kept me. And you start seeing doors open for you that have nothing to do with that. I'm telling you, God is just like, I'm ready for you to come higher because I got other things for you, but I need you to be able to deal with the people and deal with yourself and come up. So I pray that y'all receive something from this because it's just the beginning. This is just chapter 1. Yesenia, I see you over there. Come on down, Yesenia. I don't know if you raised your hand or by accident.
Hi.
Hi,
What an
Yesenia.
amazing, hi, God bless you. What an amazing chapter. And I just quickly want to say, some of you, I think maybe less than 2 people might know my testimony with my brother, but it was a very big trespass. And it was something that hurt me so deeply, but God, led me to show grace, but show correction and show boundaries at the same time. And it was a long process, but God healed our relationship where it could have been, I will never talk to you again, or you cannot come to my house again. One of those things, because it was borderline violent. And yet God made sure that I would show grace and mercy, but also establish boundaries. And so once I did that, my brother ended up in a shelter, but I followed him for a year and a half, almost 2 years of this process. And he went from different shelters in New York City. And eventually he landed a job that he's still at 4 years later. And he's on his own in his own place of dwelling, his own apartment for the last 2 years. But because of my putting my ego to the side, forgiving him and showing him love throughout the entire process. I remember I would go several times a week and sneak down the street so that the shelter didn't know that I was there with him, and would meet with him for dinner just for 20 minutes and be on the phone with him just to follow his journey and make sure he was okay, because I still love my brother. I still wanted to make sure he was protected. And I was on my knees every night, because in the shelters of New York City, it is very violent. And he would text me several pictures of body bags of different people who had been killed at the shelters. Wow. But I trusted God. And yet God restored that relationship. And then God birthed the ministry of Trim Talk through that whole experience with my brother. And now God has used us to serve over 700 men in the boroughs of Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, all because of what happened with my brother. Now we serve homeless men, now homeless women and children. And the first of it was to get to the men so that they could be served and they could have men serve with us through ICB and show the love of God to them. But had I not obeyed God, this is the whole point. Had I not obeyed God and gone to the Lord with the pain, and God to the Lord with the forgiveness, and God to go to the Lord on my knees and sacrifice my own ego and put God first, now I wouldn't see the fruit of that sacrifice of forgiveness. I would never have seen it. And now Trim Talk is 5 years old. My brother has been doing well over 5 years. Wow. But had I left him alone and not forgiven him and said, I'm cutting you off for good and never see you again, who knows if his life had been impacted, which it has. And he knows Jesus is the reason why he is blessed. But God blessed me because I chose God before my own emotions riding over this. And now it is a fruitful decision that I can't explain the countless of men's faces that made an impact through that. So I just wanted to share that for anyone who's like borderline on that threshold of not forgiving and yet not knowing what God can do 5 years later. It is beyond my hands now because of the forgiveness. That's it. Amen.
Ooh. Minister Yesenia, thank you so much for that. Wow. I'm going to leave that right there because that was a mic drop. And I love how she started it off with talking about showing that grace, but she enforced those boundaries. And that's when I say there's levels to this. This does not mean that you go necessarily right off the back and link arms with people that have hurt you, especially if there's more to it. Like she mentioned, a little violent, but just look at what God did with that. Look what God did with her decision to go sit back at that table. Some of these tables you are looking at and you don't think it's worth it. You don't think they're deserving. Let God make that decision. That is such a testimony. That is exactly in all areas what that unconditional love that she was able to show. Because even hearing her, like I said, with my brother, I don't know what's going on with these brothers, but there were times where I said, never again. Never again. But you got to know, as you get closer to God, that stuff don't sit right with you. It can't live there. As God's presence grows and you get closer to him and he draws closer to you, that stuff can't sit there. And that's why he keeps knocking on your door and resurfacing it as you grow. And we're going to have Nana Bernice close us out.
Yeah, I just want to say, after watching everyone write in the chat and all, it was just 3 people in the word that always sticks out to me. And that's Jesus, of course, Joseph, and Job. Because if anyone felt an offense, it was Joseph and Job. So sometimes when we think about allowing our offense to sit at our table, we're thinking about it through our flesh and not through the Spirit of God within us. Now, I understand that, it's difficult, but we have to remember it's a matter of the heart. It's a heart check. Because if you keep rehearsing in your mind what that person has done to you or said to you and how they don't deserve your relationship, you will not get over it. But if you make a decision for God, not for yourself, for God,
there we go,
to get over. And so sometimes not sitting at the table, you have to just have your heart cleansed, because your heart drives everything you do. If your heart is not well, it will be displayed in your actions. If your heart is in the right place, God's place for you, your life will be on the right course. And it says in Luke 8:4, Jesus compares the state of a person's heart like the condition of the soil in the field. What's your heart like? What's your soil like? Is your soil healthy so you can grow continuously in spite of the offense? And last, it says in Proverbs 30, and a lot of people, a lot of ladies in the chat said, oh, but how do I do this? I can't do this, it's too hard. Well, in Proverbs, it says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart. Lean not to your understanding.
There it is.
But in all ways, you must acknowledge him, not the offender. Acknowledge him, and he'll direct your path. And with that, you will be so blessed, because I've shared with so many of how I've had to change my way of thinking, but not on my own. None of you can do it on your own. And I always repeat it. You got to trust God to cleanse your heart and do the things that God is calling you to do.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Nana. Always a mic drop and just wrapping that whole thing up. That was it. That was all you needed to hear, what she just said. If there's anything, if everything's just spinning in your mind because you're just thinking about, because some things, some people you're thinking about, it starts to stir some things up. So some of y'all got stuck like maybe, 45 minutes ago thinking about that person and just running that situation, that playlist on repeat back in your head. And you're just like, how? But how? And like Yesenia, she didn't get into detail, but one of the things that I want to, bring out to what 3 things that Nana said, it starts with you. So that's why I said, don't go sitting at no table. It's all right. That's God cares for us so carefully. If there's anyone that bears with someone, it's God. He bears with us. His patience with us is infinite. So he's saying, start here. Start with this relationship so that he can cleanse your heart, like she said, because you can't sit at that table angry. You can't sit at that table with your own intention and with your own outfit on, talking about you got the right one today. You have to be able to put on his armor. We got to get that t-shirt and them glasses and that hat off. They're cute, but they're going to get you right back up that table. So you start here, let them cleanse your heart, and you don't have to understand everything. That was so key what she said. Lean not onto your own understanding. So I'm the type, I was the little kid in the back of the car 30 times, but why? That's all I used to, I wanted to know. I needed to know. So what's that? Oh, that's the sun. Well, why is it up there? To lighten, my mom would just be like, lighten the day. Well, what do we need light for? So we can see. What do we need to see? I mean, I would just keep, and I learned as I get older, I still do that. Okay, God, but why did that happen? But then but when I said that, but then now why am I here? Well, then why didn't you want me when I was there? And I need to understand. And one day God says, stop, stop. You are going in cycles. You're not going to understand it all yet. But what I'm trying to teach you to do is trust me. And trust actually comes when you don't have the whole book and the answer and the whys. He said, if I told you everything, you would have no reason to trust me. But because you're in this situation, you have no other choice but to trust me. And that's the relationship that God wants from us. He wants us to love him and trust him and know his character so much that he wouldn't send us into anything that would harm us, but everything is for your good. So when you sit down at that uncomfortable table, you know that ultimately it's for your good, it's for your will. So we hear the end of Yesenia's story. You don't know the purpose of where that's going. You may see it, you may not. You may see the seed of that. You may get up and say, I don't know why I sat down at that table again, but something inside of you may say, you feel a release. There's so many reasons, so many levels to this thing, so many stories, but the central nucleus is God's love. He wants to grow you. He wants to bless you. He wants to bring his church to unity. We should be able to love all, forgive all. That's a hard statement. There are certain things I think about in this world. I struggle with that forgiveness. But ultimately, we have to trust God. That's the only way. You can't go to the table if you're not taking him with you. You gotta go with him. You gotta let him go before you. Woo! We got a ways to go, ladies. But look, at least we're not sleeping over tonight. At least it's 8:20. That was a blessing. Thank you so much, Yesenia, for sharing that. And Bernice and ladies, please. I know we had so much in the chat. I couldn't even get to the chat ministry today, but I'm going to be looking over the chat. When we come back next session, it is an open forum. I really want us to pray and think about if you're led to share more testimonies like the Yesenia's. We need to hear those hit. We need to know the reality of what that looks like, what that feels like. You know what I'm saying? We want to hear testimonies. We want to hear if you're struggling, if you got a question. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to recap this. I'm going to send this video out and so that you guys can listen it and let it marinate. But may God bless you all. Let's all bow our spirits and then we're going to dance out. Father, thank you so much that you show up time and time again. You said if we just seek your face, you will show up. You will give us the words that we need. You will prepare the path. You will make it plain. You will make it clear. And even as we think of those things and those people that are kind of stirring up in us, that we know that you're speaking to us, right now I pray for your peace that surpasses understanding. Let us not get riled up. Let us not get angry. Let us know that you are God, that you have a big plan for our lives, that it's so much bigger than that person or that thing. And give us the peace in knowing that you have it under your control. Allow us and give us the courage and the strength to come boldly to your throne, that wherever we need fixing and cleaning in our hearts, that you would do so, that we would be able to look inward first before looking at what they did or how we're going to do this, and that we will find that from you in your word and Sunday services and WCWs. However, through the music, when we turn on our radio tomorrow morning, a stranger will speak to us, that you will continue to give us a word to help us understand how to take that next step and confirm what we already are hearing from you. We honor you, and I thank you for these women. I thank you for their love. I thank you for how you've created them fearfully and wonderfully, uniquely made. I thank you that you know their names. Cover them now as they go. Protect them divinely. Protect their families and their children. And we thank you for your presence and your angels that are encamped around them. And we honor you and we bless you. We thank you for forgiveness as you forgive our sins. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to break out into a worship song, y'all. Woo, guys. All right, we're going to get this dance going. Thank you guys all for joining us again tonight. We can't wait to see y'all again. In 2 weeks, we're going to keep this thing going. So we're going to breathe in. We're going to breathe, y'all. We're making it through the week. We're going to wake up tomorrow trusting God. All right.
You're listening to the sound.
All right, ladies, we're going to breathe in through our nose. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Good. Now hit it with me. Left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. Come on, hit it. Hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. Jump, jump, clap, 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 clap. Jump, jump. Not in my chair. Jump, jump. Hey. Let me see those steering. We love you guys so much. Let me go ahead and mute those mics. Love you guys.
Good night.
Thank you. Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Family.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
One of the ladies said 2 weeks ago, she saw me between 5 and 6. She said, you know what? She said, God bless the war. She said, because I would not be doing this, especially in this cold weather.
W women, we got it going on. Love you,
Wait to
ladies.
see everybody.
Hey, I love you, ladies.
Have a blessed rest of the week. It's always good to see y'all.
Good night.
Love you. Stay in the house.
House.
That's why you have to call people.
Good night, Isabel.
Good night. Good night. Good night. That's fantastic.